Often when you're programming, you want to get an idea of the configuration of the Psychopy. In our case, Psychopy. We want to get an idea of the configuration of the system. We also want to get an idea of the configuration of our monitors. Things like how fast is the refresh rate, or how many milliseconds does it take to refresh the screen. The reason why we would be interested in that for our visual neuroscience experiments is we want to accurately time the duration of our stimuli. The other thing that we might be interested in later on for configurations is, well, is our subject using a response box? So we might need to know some idea of the hardware. Or are we also talking to data acquisition boxes? So here's a measurement computing, 1408F. National Instrument also has their data acquisition boards. Or you might also be mucking around with a Arduino. So you have a serial interface as well that's currently active. So it's often very important that we know this configuration. How do we do that in Psychopy? Well, fortunately, we have a package that we can import under the info where it gets us, well, it's in the name, it gives us the RunTimeInfo. And so by importing, so from Psychopy import info, we can now essentially get all this information into our current working environment, and then we can modify our scripts, our programs, according to whatever's come up. So what's the one that we're interested in? Well, for this example, we're just going to look for average refresh time. So can this RunTimeInfo do it? Yes, it can. It can return, so it returns here a dictionary of information, one of which is under the window, and window we can get the refresh time and weight blanking and all that as well, okay? So we think this package, this function can do what we want it to do. So let's have a look. How do we run this? Well, I've got a little example here that I've written before. So we're trying to get access to the interflip interval, the average interflip interval, right? So we need to import the info module now. So the visual will create a window. We're going to put the window onto the screen. And we're also, for this example, going to import the logging functions because this is a relatively old laptop. I've got OBS capturing and I've got some other stuff in the background. So Psychopy is going to log a lot of what it considers to be potential errors or problems. We don't need that information because we know to expect some things. So what I've done is I've just set this to critical. So if you find a critical error, then please let me know about it. After that, what we do is, this should be quite familiar for you, we just create just a very standard window. Because what we're going to use to get access to the refresh rate is we're going to use this window object. So how do we get the RunTimeInfo? So here we go. Down here, we create a variable. Remember, the information from when we run this is going to be a dictionary that's then going to be put into the RunInfo variable. So info.RunTimeInfo, and then what we want to do is we want to tell it, well, what window do we want to probe or get the idea of the refresh rate from? Now, if you had more than one screen attached to your computer, for instance, we had the subject in a soundproof room with a monitor there, then you can obviously probe the monitor that's currently presenting the stimulus. So you can set, using this screen variable, whichever monitor you want to get the information from. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a refresh test. So this is taken from the reference documentation, directly from here. So we don't need the author, we don't need the version. The window we do, and the refresh test that we want is grating. So we've just essentially given this RunTimeInfo a minimum parameter set. So let's go back here. So what's this doing? Well, it's essentially presenting, I think, 60 stimuli to the screen, grating. And what it's doing is it's actually capturing the timing of each of those 60. And then what it does is it calculates the average amount of time each of those 60 or the time between each of those 60 presentations. And that's your refresh average. It can also calculate the standard deviation and the median of those refresh trials that it does. So, and then right at the end, we're just going to tidy up. So what do we get? Let's have a look. So we just run that program. So we're creating a window where I'm then essentially behind the scenes presenting 60 grating stimuli, and we're calculating how long it took for each of those 60 to be presented, and then it's going to put that into the dictionary, and then we're printing that dictionary out using this print RunInfo. So here is all the information that we have. All right. So we start from the top. So we're getting information on the current Psychopy version that we've got, and if we've got when we ran the experiment and epoch of the time. So we've got some information on Psychopy itself, where our current directory is that we're running these things from. We've also got information now on the system. Excuse me. So this computer has 8 gig of RAM. Yeah, that's correct. I've set this to Australia. I'm not currently in Australia. I'm in Germany, but you know, we've also got information on the system that we're running this off. Okay. Now, what else do we have? What were we chasing? We're chasing the refresh rate, weren't we? So let's have a look. Here we go. It's under the window. That's where we thought it was going to be. And this is the window that we've created. It's pixels, yeah. It's 800 by 800, yep. RGB 000, yep. That's the color that we created here. We're using the test monitor name, yep. It's just default. This is the width and the height and the distance. So this is what we set in the monitor center, or what you can set. Now, where is the average refresh time? There it is here. So the window refresh time, when we ran it just now at this time, it was 16.715 milliseconds. So that gives us a refresh rate frequency of, let's have a look, 1 divided by 0.016715 of 59.8 hertz. Okay, and that's roughly what, you know, the box says it does, right? So we can now not print all of this dictionary, but rather we just wanted access to just that value. So we've been returned to the dictionary, and now you should know how to get items or iterate or index into that dictionary to get just that information out. So this is how we've done it. So we want RunInfo, so this is what we've returned. We want this parameter here, which is not the standard deviation, but we want the average in milliseconds. And we're rounding it to 2 decimal points, and we're going to print that out, okay? Because we don't need it to 400 decimal places. So we will print that, and we will, yeah, that should just return a single value. Let's see what we get if we've done it correctly. So again, it's creating the window, it's presenting those 60 stimuli, the gratings, calculating how long each of those took, and then it's figuring out the average refresh time. So there we go, 20.69. So it took a little bit longer that time. All right, but this is what we want. We want the refresh, the average refresh time, because now we know how long each stimulus or each frame took to present. We can now get really accurate timing of our visual stimuli. And we'll do that in the next couple of videos. Right? So we'll leave this one here.